Hi, I'm George Crump, founder of Storage Switzerland. Thank you for joining us today for our panel discussion on digital transformation. Enterprises are reinventing their data management strategies through the effective use of IoT, big data, and machine learning for various digital initiatives. Yet they struggle to modernize these data architectures due to a lack of a global data management process. So today we're going to talk about why big data, IoT, and machine learning are no longer a want, but a requirement for digital transformation. We're also going to talk about why key global data management strategies, along with successful use cases that drive leading digital enterprises to really pull these off. And then finally, we're going to talk about how to manage, govern, and secure your global data footprint. Joining me in our panel is Dinesh Chandrasekhar. Dinesh, why don't you give us some background on yourself and what you're doing there?
Hi, my name is Dinesh Chandrasekhar. I'm a director of product marketing at Hortonworks, responsible for the Hortonworks data flow product line, HDF. Today, we'll be talking about the convergence of IoT, machine learning, and big data, and how that is like leading digital transformations across a lot of our customers. I'd be discussing some use cases, some challenges that customers are having, and then also talk about some key strategies around global data management that help customers, address such digital transformation challenges.
Also joining us from Hortonworks is Ronnie Fontaine. Ronnie, same thing. Why don't you tell the folks what you're going to be doing on the panel today and what your role at Hortonworks is?
Okay, thank you, George. I'm Ronnie Fontaine, Director of Product Marketing at Hortonworks, and I'm responsible for our Hortonworks Data Platform, or HDP, product offering. And over the last couple of years that I've been at Hortonworks, I've seen many of our customers take on either a new project or initiative to begin their digital transformation. And they're doing this because they either want to create new revenue streams, they might want to get a better handle on their operational costs, or they just want to try something new. So I think that this is a really relevant topic that we're talking about today, and I'm really glad and excited to be discussing it with the two of you.
Yeah, Ronnie, thanks for that. So, Dinesh, let's start with sort of industry trends, right? We're hearing a lot about digital transformation. What are some of the industry trends that are driving it?
Thank you, Josh. That's a good start. I think it is important to recognize that a lot of the industry verticals across the board are talking about a common theme here. You would see notions of connected trucks, connected factories, smart cities, connected customers, connected customer experiences. So you see the pattern that is emerging across all these different industry verticals. And it's not just because everybody's talking about IoT, Internet of Things, that's why they're saying connected. But it's the very nature of bringing together a lot of these ecosystems that are thriving around enterprises and talking about the nature of connected data. So that is the common theme. If you look across any one of these initiatives, you would see that the common theme behind is actually data, and it's about connected data. Because data that is relevant to an enterprise today is not just resident inside an enterprise. It is not just in one single data warehouse. It is not just in a particular data lake. It is actually much wider, deeper, and beyond. So we are talking about data inside the enterprise. We are talking data outside the enterprise, at the edge. So there are a lot of different areas. And data is, again, not resident inside your on-premises environment. You're also talking about data across multiple clouds, across multiple on-premises data centers. So this leads to newer challenges. And enterprises are struggling with it, which is something that we'll talk about. But the areas that I want to highlight here are most of these initiatives are driven by largely four common trends, industry trends that you will see. One is Internet of Things itself. That leads to the very topic of connectedness and connectivity. And second is artificial intelligence, and there are other flavors of that, including machine learning, deep learning, data science, and all that too. And then there is cloud, which has been a driving force for us over the last couple of decades, and of course streaming data. Right? So if you look at it, these four are not mutually exclusive. They are connected so tightly with every single one of the digital transformations that are happening inside digital enterprises today. So let's take an example. If I were to be an enterprise that is going on to a new initiative, new transformation, and digital transformation generally tend to be typically business transformations involving digital technology. So this could be around an IoT deployment, for example. And these IoT devices by themselves are going to be smart. in the sense that, you don't have to like worry about, do I have to update them with a service patch? Do I have to send out like security updates and all that? The devices are becoming smarter. So there is a level of like, artificial intelligence and machine learning, built into them that makes them intelligent enough to like, pull updates from, the mothership and like kind of download and update themselves and keep themselves up to date. And the nature of these IoT deployments is also that every single IoT device is going to be like spewing off sensor data to the tunes of like millions of sensor information per day. There are enterprises that are struggling with even more larger amounts of data that is coming in through, and this is what we refer to as streaming data that is like constantly in motion, and that is like hitting the enterprises with like such velocity that enterprises need to like make sure that they have a capacity to store, but also the ability to like process them in real time. So that's what we are dealing with. These are the trends that are like impacting the enterprises today.
Well, thanks very much, Dinesh. I think that really sets the table well for us. But Ronnie, one of the things that I get concerned with is just digital transformation itself. And can you give a few examples of what we mean by digital transformation and some customers that have gone through that process?
I'd be happy to, George. So an example of what digital transformation looks like would be getting a 360-degree view of the customer. It might be delivering a greater customer experience. It might be about boosting operational efficiencies and lowering costs. So first, I'm going to start with an example of the 360-degree view of the customer, which gives businesses a unified view of all the customer data. And it's really good for understanding customer behavior. And digital transformation helps organizations uncover data that might be scattered across all different types of products, silos, databases, geographic locations, and multiple channels. So the end result is that if you get all this data together, businesses can better target, they can acquire and retain new customers, they can identify opportunities, they can overcome challenges, and they can also grow revenue. Another example of this is delivering greater customer experience or greater customer experiences, which has been huge. And if you look at Amazon, Amazon has totally changed the way and revolutionized the way that we buy products. Now, when you want to buy a product, you go on Amazon, you search for the product, you look at the recommendations of other products, and you look at the reviews of that particular product. And this is how people search for things and shop for things. And it doesn't really matter if whether they're shopping online or they're shopping to get something in a store. So for example, if I want to go buy a car, I'm going to do my research, whether it's on Amazon or the internet, and look at all the reviews on that particular car. I'm going to see what the best price is. So when I go to the dealer, I have all this extra data at my hand. So as a buyer, I'm much more empowered, so I have a better experience. Another example of this is Uber. And Uber has totally disrupted the way we get a taxi, and it's also impacted the user experience. So now, when I want to get a Uber, all I do is summon this service, and immediately Uber or whatever service provider it is will know exactly where I am because they know where my location is, and they will either deliver. It might be delivering a product, or they'll be picking me up to take me somewhere at within a matter of moments. And this has really made a really big difference in terms of customer experience. And what's also really great about it, there's no payment exchange because everything is done through credit card information that they have, as well as it's just really easy to do because it's just an app on your phone. And so if you're in the service industry, then at some point you'll have to follow this trend because customers will demand it. And another example of this, it would be the hotel industry. So Airbnb has totally revolutionized the way we look to book travel now as far as places to stay. It's just given us a lot more examples and really empowered us as a user. And another example of this would be virtual reality. And virtual reality is about a better user experience in the entertainment business, or it might be used for real estate. And this is where the physical meets the digital. So soon, there are other industries that also need this type of better user experience or this disruption in the industry. So, for example, if you are taking a flight from, say, San Francisco to Boston, which is a really long flight, and when you get there, the gate personnel is not ready, you're going to be sitting there for 30 minutes on the runway because there's no gate, then you're going to, this is an example of an industry where customers are going to demand that these type of responses be more instantaneous. So the stakes for success and failure are really high because industry boundaries are lower. Industries have access to all this technology that enables digital transformation. So it becomes really important for companies to keep current and to keep up with their competition, or they'll just be left out of the ball game.
Yeah, I think the gate thing is something that airlines really take care of. Like, the worst thing you can do is be early for a flight because you end up getting to the other side. You have to wait anyways, right? So
you have to wait anyways because they're not ready for you, and it doesn't seem like they knew that you got in early. So
right. And it would seem like, I don't know, there's a couple of IoT devices on a plane. So I think this is something we should be able to tackle.
I totally agree.
Dinesh, what are your thoughts on these?
Actually, Ronnie touched on a lot of really interesting use cases. I think those are all definitely important things to consider as to what digital transformation looks like today. I would also kind of enhance upon it and say frictionless commerce, like the same Amazon example of being able to go into a grocery store, not having to pull out a credit card, not having to interface with a checkout clerk, but still be able to get all your items that you want, milk, bread, whatever, and then walk out of the store and the payment automatically gets deducted out of your payment mechanism. So that's where customers are getting to in terms of the wants and the needs, where they're saying I want as minimal friction as needed with your business, but I want all the benefits and the services that you deliver. The key thing to note here is that data by itself in this particular context is so fast and so happening that the opportunity window in any one of these scenarios is so narrow. If you miss that opportunity window to grab the customer's attention, to grab the moment to deliver the right kind of experience to the customer, you actually missed a business opportunity right there. That's your opportunity window. And so that's why I try to say that data has a decay period. There's a decay period where it starts losing its value. So the moment is now. You need to grab real-time streaming data right then and there and be able to understand the insights behind it and being able to deliver actionable intelligence on top of that. And that's what makes great digital transformations. That's what delivers fantastic customer experiences. That's where we are headed with
and you don't want to be in a situation where you're scrambling to catch up. I think. I mean, the customer isn't as sticky as they used to be. They'll flip on you pretty quick, right?
Exactly. Definitely.
Yeah. So, Ronnie, let's talk about digital transformation just from a challenges perspective. I feel like this is something that shows up on the IT project whiteboard and is dreaded. Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenges facing customers that are going through digital transformation?
Well, as you can see in this diagram that's building out, one of the biggest challenges is the sprawl of data. So we have all different types of data, your data in motion. So data that comes from sensors, from Internet of Things, from social, from click streams, from the shopping experience on the web, from your mobile devices, as well as data the more traditional data that comes from databases and legacy operational data. And then on top of that, there's data that originates in the cloud, and data can be in multiple clouds, whether it's Azure, Google, or Amazon, as well as data that originates in the data center. And add to that, the data can be in all different geolocations, especially if you have data centers that are all over the world. And so you need to get access to all these different types of silos of data in the company, as well as all these different types of data together. And you want this data to be in one place. So some kind of data repository or data lake or big data platform. So you can store, analyze, and process the data to be able to get actionable intelligence and business insights. And we call this a modern data architecture. So a modern data architecture no longer cares about what type of data it is or where the data is located. It doesn't matter if it's in the cloud or the data center. It doesn't matter what location it is. With this modern data architecture, big data platform, you can address a lot of these challenges about getting your data together because you have a lot more information at your fingertips. And so, for example, a retail company might be able to create a customer loyalty program because they have access to all these different silos of data. Or a bank that may has a mortgage broker business. Maybe one of their mortgage brokers is moving to a different firm. And traditionally, they would just take their Rolodex with them and that would be it. But now the bank has access to all this company data from all these different sources. So that doesn't need to happen anymore. So a modern data architecture really makes a difference in addressing these challenges and helps enable the digital transformation.
You know, Dinesh, one of the things I see as sort of the most challenging of those challenges is the Internet of Things thing, because on purpose, these things are all over the place. And that really has to put some stress on that architecture, right?
Yes. So, very good question. So the thing is, modern data architectures do not are not designed for, it is something that evolves around you as an enterprise. Today, with so many digital transformations happening and with all these industry trends that we just talked about, this is like the perfect picture of, the convergence that we talked about earlier of IoT and machine learning and big data and everything coming together. Ronnie touched on the point that, hey, you do need a big data platform to support all this data that is coming in from these various sources. The notion of volume, velocity, and variety, which has been kind of like the three go-to, mantra for big data and pretty much, all the terms surrounding it, is still valid in this particular modern data architecture. There is so much volume coming in from all these different data sources. The variety of data is so vast, and the velocity at which it hits the enterprise is very relevant because that's where it goes back to the point about data decay and wanting to capture it. And IoT is a perfect example of escalating that challenge. So when you have thousands of smart meters in the field that are sending out sensor data, and this is not just health data. It is also about data about how much the usage has been, what the customer is consuming at a given point in time. Or is there an outage in there? Is there power leakage happening in the system? All these kinds of metrics are also coming in through, and the ability to process this and then feed it into machine learning models that immediately tell you from a predictive learning standpoint saying, hey, there is a potential outage that is going to happen in a specific area, is all the connectedness that we are talking about, is where IoT and machine learning and big data come together to deliver the perfect digital transformation initiative for enterprises.
Yeah, Dinesh, I was reading a piece that you wrote just recently, and I thought a great line in there was that these environments are born, not built. You can't really plan. It's really hard to plan ahead. I guess you can obviously plan ahead, but they're really hard to plan ahead for, right?
Correct. Yeah, they just grow around you. These industry forces drive enterprises to adopt and adapt rather than saying, hey, I can prepare myself for the next 5 years. You have to have a more future-proof architecture that you can evolve into rather than saying, I have it figured out for the next 5 years.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So let's talk about, so what do you propose here? What's the right way to get there?
The big question, the money question.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, there's some strategies that our customers have adopted in terms of, delivering on these digital transformations. So with all these challenges that have been mentioned, one of the key, things to talk about is how do we overcome data that is spread across multiple data centers on premises, as well as on multiple clouds, as well as outside on the edge from all these IoT devices and all that. How do I look at a holistic perspective of all this data and be able to make critical decisions that I need to make for my business initiatives? Going back to what Ronnie said about customer 360, if I were to query and say, get me all the customer data, how many different data sources do I have to query? Data is no longer just in one CRM system to go yeah, all my customer data is in there. No, customer data exists everywhere in a given enterprise today. There is a social stream, for example, where customers are discussing about your products in there. You need to understand the sentiment of those customers and figure out what this customer feels about my particular product. How do I capture that and feed that into customer promotions, customer support, customer onboarding, and all that too. So that's the kind of state we are in, where data needs to be addressed across data at rest as well as data in motion. And that's where global data management delivers upon the promise. Global data management, in a very short way to say it, is a holistic way to look at data across all your data points and be able to look at not only data in motion, but also at data at rest. And the difference being, data in motion is all the streaming stuff that we talked about, and data at rest is where you're looking at the data lakes and all the other data stores that you have for gaining historical insights, and being able to provide this one single common layer to manage, secure, govern, and consume. And each one of those are very valid points, very important points too. Consumption, we talked about it just now, getting that holistic view, being able to get data across the board and all that. Security, obviously, you're talking about customer data, you need to provide security. And the management angle of it, is definitely necessary. Governance is something that I would definitely love to stress upon as well, because that governance is where you're talking about entire data lineage of the provenance angle of it, where you need to understand, how data has transformed, through its journey from the edge all the way into your data lake. What kind of touch points has it had? Who touched it? What changes happened? And being able to understand that is what governance is about. So that would lead you into supporting modern data use cases. All these digital transformations that we talked about, all the different scenarios that we talked about, they can all be supported when you have this common global data management platform in place.
Yeah, I would think, Dinesh, that something like GDPR, for example, was going to really require good skills in that governance space, no?
Yeah, absolutely, right. GDPR is talking about regulations and compliance to the data. It is about wanting to make sure that you can track and audit data at any given point in time. The ability to pull a particular customer's data across all the different touch points that it has had, and being able to provide complete auditability and accountability of the data changes that have happened to that particular customer data. And that's what this particular model can provide. So absolutely, global data management can support GDPR and similar such scenarios where such kind of governance is required very, very strongly.
So, Ronnie, when I think of big data and this topic, Hortonworks is one of those names for me, anyways, that's very synonymous with this. What are you guys doing around this global data management? Do you guys have a specific solution in this space?
George, I'm glad you asked. As a matter of fact, we do. And and Dinesh, that was a great description of about what global data management is and what it means. So at Hortonworks, we do have a global data management platform, and it has three different parts. We have our Hortonworks Data Platform, or HDP. We have our Hortonworks Data Flow, or HDF, and we have Data Plane Services, or DPS. So first, I'm going to start with Hortonworks Data Platform. That is our data at rest platform. And it is an enterprise-ready data management platform that's built on 100% open source. So that is one of our key differentiators at Hortonworks. No vendor lock-in. You get access to all the innovators and committers that are really involved in this technology. It also allows our customers to store and analyze both structured and unstructured data. So again, that data at rest and data in motion, to help drive new revenue, improve customer experience, and control costs. And HDP is also, it works both on-prem and in the cloud, and it handles multi-workloads, including batch, interactive, and real-time data process. And on top of that, all while modernizing your IT infrastructure and keeping your data secure. So I'll let Dinesh talk about HDF, since he's responsible for that one.
Yeah, sure. No, and the point that Ronnie raised about being 100% open source is definitive, and it's something that Hortonworks takes pride in because pretty much all the products that we work on are 100% open source. And so we love our community, and the community loves us back, and this is what makes Hortonworks very unique and differentiating. So to Hortonworks Data Flow, what I would say is this is the data in motion platform. This focuses purely on real-time streaming analytics So there are three broad areas to Hortonworks data flow. One is the ability to do flow management, data flows, which are very essential to bring in data from like multiple sources, particularly when you talk about edge level, devices and streams coming in from applications. Excuse me, streams coming in from other such sources. Then you are trying to like look at an ability to like capture data at the source, pull that in, and being able to process that in real time into a stream processing engine. So Hortonworks data flow provides you with that kind of capability of that kind of flow management, and it's powered, purely by Apache NiFi, which is an open source engine that allows for ingesting from all these different sources using a concept called processors, kind of like connectors. But it allows for a scale which is like unimaginable by a lot of the other products, such as like an application integration or like ETL kind of tools and all that. So this is like talking about data ingestion at a really high scale. And then the other part of Hortonworks data flow is the stream processing and stream analytics part of it, where you can take in all these data streams that are coming in through and being able to like bubble it up into events and trying to understand patterns within that. And here's where I'd love to talk about like complex event processing, where it is the ability to like understand different patterns that are emerging out of these data streams that are coming in through, and being able to like escalate that, bubble that up as alerts and notifications. This could be like something like credit card fraud happening within a data stream coming in from various financial sources. This could be like about healthcare biometrics kind of an alert about a particular patient based on biometrics data that is coming in from various patient sensor information. So the ability to like understand the patterns in real time and goes back to the topic that we talked about earlier about data decay and all that. So this is where it is purely applicable, and then pushing those data points downstream into a data lake and all that is also possible. And the third part of Hortonworks data flow is enterprise services, which is providing this overarching management monitoring layer that allows for not only security, governance, and all that, but also with developer productivity tools like schema registry and NiFi registry and all that as well. So that's Hortonworks data flow in a sense.
So Ronnie, and I know that you're in charge of the data platform, so why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so first I wanted to just say that both Hortonworks data platform and Hortonworks data flow, they're what we call our connected data platforms. And then we also have a service called Data Plane service, and that has the idea of Data Plane is to be able to manage all these different resources, whether it's data in motion, data at rest, and to apply a consistent security and governance layer that allows access to the data in a consistent fashion. And the way that we do this is by deploying these extensible services on the platform. And one example of this is Data Lifecycle Manager, which is the first service that we've deployed on Data Plane. And this is where we can manage tiering, we can do backup, recovery, archiving of the data. And then there'll be a couple of new ones that will be coming out, which I'm not going to talk about today, but and this will help complete our data platform service. And the other great thing about Data Plane service is that it's extensible through APIs. So this means our ISVs and other ecosystem partners will be able to either build or bring their own apps to Data Plane service. So stay tuned and see what we'll be doing in the future on Data Plane service.
So, Ronnie, before we wrap up here, I noticed that there's a connection and platform services on the sides. You want to talk a little bit what the role of those are?
Sure. So both Hortonworks Connection and Hortonworks Platform Services are, again, part of our global data management strategy that we have at Hortonworks. And Hortonworks Connection is all our different types of services around enterprise support, premier support. It's our educational services, our professional services, and we also have a huge community that we call Hortonworks Community Connection. And this is all part of what we call our Hortonworks Connection. And these are available to all our customers, as well as we have something that we call Hortonworks Platform Services. And as a matter of fact, we just rolled out a service called Operational Services last week, which is a type of managed service to be able to manage different types of services in your data center. And it's more of a hands-on getting resources, people type resources attached to being able to manage the service. And then Smart Sense is a technology, which is actually one of our own technologies, which is a proactive monitoring and troubleshooting tool that helps you be able to just be smarter about what's going on in your cluster. It's able to make recommendations. It's able to send logs of everything that's going on in your cluster. So if you did have a problem, support would be able to figure it out much more quickly. So this is, again, all part of our global data management platform at Hortonworks.
Well, I got to tell you guys, I'm really impressed with the comprehensive nature of this. It's really good to see. Just a couple of questions before we close out here. I think that some folks might have, and I'll just, whichever one of you guys want to jump in on this, go ahead. But my sense is that when you guys encounter somebody that's they're already sort of heading down the path and it might be curvy and they're running into trouble, what's the logical first step for somebody that really wants to implement a global data management strategy?
Ronnie, did you want me to take it?
Yeah, you could take it, Dinesh.
All right. So I would say for an enterprise to look at global data management as a strategy, the first order of business is to understanding what are some of their key initiatives that they have and what kind of data is tied to those initiatives. Understanding that is kind of first order of business. Once you understand what kind of data is tied to those initiatives, then you understand what is the value that it brings to the business. So out of 16 zettabytes of data that have been produced in the last year across the world, across all enterprises, only 1% of that has been analyzed. So the rest of it is all dark data that has not been analyzed, that has been sitting out there inside enterprises, not really being able to leverage, being able to be used for critical insights. So that's where we are as an enterprise, right? So the ability to help out enterprises realize the value of data, harness the value of data is kind of very, very imminent and important. So enterprises need to understand, first off, as I said, know what the key initiatives are, the data that is tied behind them, and the value behind that data. Is that data going to help me solve some of these key business decisions, help me address some of these key challenges that I'm facing, help me make or launch new digital transformation initiatives. If you get that, then you will know how to harness that. And the harnessing part is where global data management strategy comes in play. Being able to segregate your data at rest, being able to know which is data in motion, and tying it all together and providing that single seamless view of security, governance, and management. And that will help them kind of drive the entire set of initiatives forward successfully.
And I'd like to add something to that as well. I'm going to go one click down from what Dinesh said. Dinesh he definitely summed it up really well. But another thing that would help enterprises embarking on this journey is if they understand what their use case is, which a lot of that has to do is knowing what kind of data is available, but is their use case around that they want to get a 360-degree view of the customer? Is their use case around that they, it may be around the data scientists need to collaborate and have more access to all this different data? It might be around EDW optimization, being able to better optimize and work with the data that's in these enterprise data warehouses. So all these different types of use cases and understanding the problem that they want to solve on their digital transformation will really help them begin and embark on their journey as well.
Okay. And then you had mentioned data tiering earlier. Is that a tiering where I can tier from on-prem to the cloud and multi-layers within the cloud? Is it sort of to move data to save money while it's not being analyzed? Is that the primary purpose there?
Data tiering is about, yes, moving what I meant by that is really about moving data, whether you're moving data from one data center to another data center, or it could be data center to the cloud. But it's more about the backup, being able to back up your particular data that's in your or workloads that's in your cluster. So it was more general what I was referring to.
Gotcha. I find that in sort of this era right now, people tend to kind of overlook backup a little bit. So it's important to make sure that you are protecting that data, right?
Exactly.
So the other thing came up is open source is always interesting to me because it sounds good, but sometimes it's a little bit of the wild, wild west. I'm assuming at Hortonworks, you guys come in to sort of help with any of those bumpy issues, right?
Sure. So, I come from a non-open source world. This is like full disclaimer. So prior to Hortonworks, I've always worked on the other side of the fence. Where I worked with like proprietary software, helping out customers with like proprietary solutions. But once I came onto this side of the fence, I kind of see so much value in being open source, being able to like deliver solutions that customers can take, adapt, and innovate upon, and not feel like I'm locked into this particular vendor, I'm stuck. And there are so many scenarios like that where I've had customers feel that way in the past, where they go like, oh, you guys are not innovating, and I'm stuck in such a way that I cannot like move off of you and all that. But the notion of open source gives that ability customers to like innovate and extend upon it. They can come up with their own solutions. The notion of community that Ronnie talked about is helping us contribute not only to the community, but the community contributes back as well. So it's a solution set that we are progressively like building upon together within this ecosystem. So all these solutions that we build out are also helping the community, and the community is also helping us like enhance upon these offerings, and give us consistent feedback on where to like take this product to the next level and all that. So innovation happening across organizations is purely powered by technologies like these that are open in nature, that are allowing for organizations to like adapt and like enhance upon it. So that's my take on it. I really love it, and I feel like there's so much promise in it. I've been talking to analysts, and analysts are definitely feeling that open source is definitely the way to go. We're talking about blockchains. Blockchains are completely open source driven. That's like changing the face of earth for the next few years until something else comes up. But at least for the foreseeable future, there's so much promise within blockchains, and I believe in it. And I feel like that is also again driven because of the pure nature of it being open source. So I see a lot of promise here.
Yeah, I agree. I think the flexibility certainly can't be underestimated, especially because to some extent we don't know what we don't know yet. If we're just at the beginning of this thing, who knows what the next 5-10 years is going to look like. But I think another aspect that sometimes gets overlooked is how well vetted open source is, because you've got millions and millions of people operating on it. Am I on the right track there, Ronnie?
Yes, definitely. We have in the open source world, we have what we call committers, and committers are people that are the top engineers that are involved with these different Apache projects. And here at Hortonworks, we actually have a couple hundred of committers that are involved with our software. So our customers can actually get access to these committers if there's something that comes up. And another thing I wanted to say about open source, because I too came from a more enterprise software background, so open source was new to me as well, is what I've really been impressed with is, I've talked to a number of our customers, been to our customer advisory board. Our customers really, the customers that we have, they really love the concept of open source. And our software is actually free, and our customers can just download the bits. They don't have to pay us. What they're paying for is our support, our expertise, our access to our roadmap. So I've always been really impressed on, we have over 1,300 plus customers that have really been following us all these years. So it's been a great experience.
And if I may add one more thing, I would say that there are competitive situations where we face, and the winning factor there, the key differentiator there, is the customer chose us is because we are open source. I'm like totally sold on this concept of like customers wanting this kind of enablement to like help them progress through that journey in being so open about their implementations.
Great. Well, guys, I want to thank you very much for helping us out on the panel today.
Thank you, George. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you, George. Great chatting with you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. So there you have it. I think we've hit on some of the key issues as we talk about digital transformation and dealing with IoT and big data and machine learning. Again, I don't think it'd be emphasized enough that this is really a requirement now. If you're going to do business in this era, this isn't a nice to have. This is, you've got to have this. And so I think that that's a key aspect. The ability to look at some of the successful use cases, the ability to look at some of the successful use cases and see how they've literally changed those industries. And Ronnie pointed out some real good ones in Amazon and Uber and Airbnb. All those guys have just fundamentally changed those businesses, and it's because they've been able to do things like we're talking about today. But at the same time, I think the sort of the best practices of managing and governing and securing data become increasingly critical. And I think that regulations like GDPR are just the beginning. And so being good stewards of this data is also going to be a critical aspect. But again, I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm George Crump, founder of Storage Switzerland. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.